High school graduation was usually filled with bright emotions and pleasant impressions, but for the Murphy family, this day became a day of mourning. 17-year-old Alexis was supposed to walk onto the stage with her classmates, but the beast decided to take her life in the most horrific way. And before we get started, be kind enough to support my channel. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay active. It will help a lot. I will be very grateful to you for that. Let's get started. Alexis Tiara Murphy was born on June 5, 1996, in Charlottesville, Virginia, to Laura and Troy. She was her parents' only daughter. Besides her, they had 3 sons. Alexis was a true girly girl. Her favorite color was, of course, pink. She always cared deeply about her appearance and could spend hours styling her unruly hair if she was going out. To keep up with fashion trends, Alexis bought magazines, picked out a look she liked, and tried to recreate it. She loved shopping and collecting vintage clothing. In the future, she dreamed of becoming a famous model. She had a cheerful personality and was always full of positivity. Her contagious laughter often echoed from her room when everyone else had long been asleep. Alexis would stay up late watching comedy shows on TV. Her mother frequently heard her laughing into her pillow to muffle the sound. A sincere, sociable, and kind-hearted girl, Alexis grew from a happy child into a bright and positive teenager. She loved dancing and sports. She played volleyball in high school and planned to join a college team. She eagerly looked forward to the future and embraced every day with joy. Her family said that Alexis was an extraordinary person with a warm heart. Her humor and laughter always resonated with those around her. She had a special way of connecting with children, and little kids always followed her around in a crowd. She was a friend who could truly listen and give honest advice. A sister who cherished her brothers, even when they got on her nerves. A daughter her parents were proud of. A niece who could always be relied on. And one day, she was gone. Saturday, August 3rd, 2013, was an ordinary day. In the morning, 17-year-old Alexis was hanging around the house, unsure of how to keep herself busy, as she had plans for the second half of the day. She wanted to go buy some hair extensions to style her hair for a photo shoot. Meanwhile, her mother, Laura, was getting ready for her night shift at work. She gave her daughter some money, kissed her, and asked her to be careful while driving. Alexis borrowed her father's car to drive from their home in Shipman, Virginia, to Lynchburg. The drive to Lynchburg usually took about 20 minutes, and Alexis left shortly after 3 p.m. At the time, her mother, Laura, had no idea she was seeing her daughter for the last time. Alexis walked out of the house, got into the car, and waved goodbye to her mother. On her way back at 6:40 p.m., she posted a short message on social media where she had a large following, about 12,000 subscribers. And after that, Alexis disappeared. Alexis had a curfew and was supposed to be home by midnight. She was never late. When her grandmother, who lived with them, noticed that her granddaughter had not returned, she became worried and immediately contacted Laura. The woman had just finished her night shift and was heading home. She immediately sensed that something was wrong and started calling her daughter's number over and over again, but there was no answer. Laura knew that something was seriously off because Alexis never parted with her phone. The family used to joke that it was glued to her palm. She slept with it, took it into the shower, ate with it. Even when she put it on the charger, she used an extension cord so she could move around the house with it. For Alexis, not coming home on time and not answering her phone was so out of character that Laura immediately contacted her husband. Troy called the police to report his daughter missing. He tried to stay calm and not panic, knowing he needed to be strong for the family and not assume the worst. But the fact that Alexis hadn't made it home by curfew deeply unsettled him. As he drove to the sheriff's office, 100 terrible thoughts raced through his mind. Surprisingly, the police took the report seriously right away, even though only a short time had passed. They did not, as they often do, assume that she had gone off to party or got caught up chatting with friends and would be back soon. Instead, they immediately launched a search for the high school senior. The first place they went was an estate called Oak Ridge. Alexis's family was able to track her last possible location using the Find My iPhone app, but no traces of the girl were found there. Detectives turned to the missing girl's social media accounts to see if any of her followers might have been involved in her disappearance. However, this turned out to be an overwhelming task, as they would have had to check more than 10,000 people, many of whom were registered under fake names. Still, social media helped spread information about her disappearance very quickly. Investigators also requested Alexis's phone records to determine which cell towers had last pinged her mobile. Meanwhile, they began checking Highway 29, which leads to Lynchburg. Police examined several locations along the Shipman-Lynchburg route and discovered that on August 3rd at 7 p.m., Alexis had stopped at the Liberty gas station in Lovingston. Surveillance footage from the gas station showed her walking in and purchasing gas. She appeared completely normal, not upset or scared. While there was nothing unusual in the footage, it helped police narrow down the timeline of the incident and determine what Alexis was wearing when she was last seen. Video footage provides a much clearer picture than a verbal description of someone's appearance. Alexis was wearing a pink top, floral print spandex pants, and brown boots. Her phone last connected to a cell tower at 7:15 p.m., just 1.5 kilometers from the gas station, before going completely silent. This meant that something could have happened to her within those 15 minutes, and most likely it had to have happened near the gas station. A massive search operation was launched, involving family, friends, volunteers, police, and the FBI. A helicopter searched from the air for any signs of Alexis's car. 3 days after her disappearance, the high schooler's car was found parked near a movie theater in Charlottesville, more than 30 miles from where Alexis was last seen. Inside and outside the vehicle, there was nothing that could help police get closer to finding Alexis. Detectives obtained surveillance footage from a nearby shopping center. The footage showed a white Nissan Maxima pulling into the movie theater parking lot at 10:30 p.m. on August 5th, a full day after Alexis was last seen. The video was extremely low quality, making it impossible to determine who was driving the car. Despite the FBI's efforts to enhance the footage and remove the graininess, nothing could be done. It was unclear whether the driver was a man or a woman, and there were no distinguishing features. However, Alexis's parents, after just a brief glance at the video, immediately said it was not her. She would never have left her father's car in an unfamiliar place, and she had no reason to be there. Moreover, Alexis had been afraid of the dark since childhood, and by then it was already nighttime. Investigators returned to their starting point, the gas station footage. In the surveillance footage, officers noticed a man holding the door open for Alexis as she was leaving the gas station. It appeared that they were not acquainted, and the man's gesture seemed like a simple act of politeness. However, police wanted to speak with the stranger seen in the footage in case he remembered anything. The man had a distinctive neck tattoo of Daffy Duck, making him easy to identify. He was driving a camouflage Chevrolet. Detectives spoke with the gas station employees and soon learned that the man's name was Randy, and he was a regular at the 24-hour convenience store. He frequently bought alcohol and cigarettes there. Randy turned out to be 48-year-old Randolph Allen Taylor. The man had a criminal record. He had previously been arrested for arson and burglary. These crimes were, of course, different from abduction and murder. However, investigators believed that Taylor might have been responsible for other offenses that had yet to be proven. Once they learned his real name, the police were able to locate his residence. Law enforcement officers and FBI agents went to the given address and found an abandoned house. The house was located on Highway 29, near the main road. However, it was hidden from view by dense vegetation. As police searched the property and the surrounding land, they discovered the Chevrolet. Shortly after, Randy Taylor himself came outside. Detectives explained to him that they were investigating the disappearance of a 17-year-old girl named Alexis Murphy and asked where he had been on August 3, 2013. Taylor fully cooperated with the police. He even invited them into his trailer and gave a detailed account of what he was doing on the Saturday when Alexis disappeared. According to him, he had never met the girl in the photograph and was not at the Liberty gas station that day. On August 3rd, Taylor admitted to having a few drinks and refueling his vehicle, but he claimed it was at a completely different location. When he was informed that Liberty employees had seen him at the gas station that Saturday, the man acted as if he simply didn't remember. In reality, detectives had another piece of footage that they had discovered later, video from an external camera at the gas station. The footage clearly showed Taylor and Alexis talking. After their conversation, both got into their cars and drove off the parking lot, one after the other. Since Taylor had initially denied being at the Liberty gas station that day and seeing the missing girl, suspicion against him immediately grew. However, the man continued to deny ever speaking with Alexis Murphy or that she had ever been in his trailer or on his property. He only broke down after being confronted with the gas station surveillance footage. Taylor then began spinning a fabricated story, claiming that he actually did know the girl. He said they had once run into each other at a car dealership where he was working part-time. Alexis had been there with her aunt. Taylor recognized her and started a conversation. During their talk, Taylor said he had been smoking weed, and Alexis liked the smell. He simply offered her to try some and invited her to follow him. According to Taylor, Alexis was not alone in the car. She had a friend with her. And so, they went to visit Taylor. Whether this version of events was true remains unknown. Alexis's mother insisted that her daughter had never used substances like that. However, teenagers don't always tell their parents about their bad habits. Still, this was only one version of events, the one given by the suspect. And the only person who could refute it was Alexis herself. But unfortunately, she was no longer able to do so. Although Taylor claimed that the young people had hung out with him for a while and then safely went home, detectives didn't believe him. They showed him several photos of young men from Alexis's social media. Taylor pointed at one of Alexis's classmates who matched the description. The problem, however, was that this young man had been out of state with his parents on August 3rd and couldn't have possibly been at Taylor's trailer that night. Detectives saw that Taylor was trying to steer the investigation in the wrong direction, so they obtained a warrant to search his trailer and the surrounding area. Inside the camper, police found a diamond stud earring, a fingernail, and long black hair. They believed these items belonged to Alexis. The evidence was sent to a lab for analysis. Swabs taken from the diamond stud, along with the fingernail and hair, matched Alexis Murphy's DNA. On top of that, police brought in search dogs trained to detect mobile devices, flash drives, and other gadgets to comb the area around the trailer. About 60 feet from Taylor's trailer, they found Alexis's cell phone. The phone was nearly destroyed, its screen was completely shattered, and the battery had been ripped out. Due to the severe physical damage, experts were unable to recover any data from the device. However, the fact that Alexis was never without her phone, along with the fingernail, hair, and earring found in the trailer, suggested that something terrible had happened to her. Then, investigators received new information. Just 45 minutes before Taylor went to the Liberty gas station, he had purchased 2 adult films at a nearby store. Detectives decided to conduct a second search of his trailer, and what they discovered made the situation look even worse. Local police and FBI agents found additional evidence. Taylor owned a scrapbook filled with cutout photos of naked women in lewd poses. He had printed pictures of his acquaintances and random girls from social media, pasting their faces onto the bodies in the images. But the most horrifying discovery was under the couch, Alexis's pink top, the one she had been wearing that day, along with hair extensions and false eyelashes. Bloodstains were found on the back of the top. Further forensic testing confirmed that the blood belonged to Alexis Murphy. In the end, Randy Taylor was arrested and charged with a first-degree felony. Authorities believed that he had lured Alexis into his trailer under false pretenses and then took her life. The crime was believed to have been motivated by sexual intent. The suspect was jailed without bail. For Taylor, this came as a complete shock. When the handcuffs were placed on him, his expression resembled that of a deer caught in headlights. He simply had not expected the police to bring charges against him so quickly. It seemed that he had gotten away with crimes before and was confident it would happen again. Things moved fast because detectives also suspected Taylor was responsible for the September 2010 disappearance of another young woman, 19-year-old Samantha Clark. Samantha had gone missing in Orange, Virginia, about 30 miles from Charlottesville. At the time of her disappearance, Samantha and Taylor had lived in the same trailer park, and he had called her shortly before she vanished. On September 13, 2010, Samantha was home with her younger brother, Hunter. Their mother was working a night shift. When their mother left for work, her older daughter was in her pajamas, watching TV in the living room. That night, Hunter called their mother's work number and said that Samantha had left after receiving a phone call. She had promised to be back soon, but by 1:30 a.m., she still hadn't returned. When their mother came home in the morning, she found Samantha's pajamas on her bed. The only thing missing was the house key. She had taken nothing else with her. The situation was strange. Her mother knew that Samantha never went out at night. Public transportation wasn't running either, so where could she have gone on foot at that hour? Hoping the situation would resolve itself, her mother dropped Hunter off at school and took a nap after her shift. She was sure that by the time she woke up, Samantha would be home to explain everything. After all, she was an adult and could leave the house without permission. But when Samantha still hadn't returned a few hours later, her mother went to the police station to report the issue. She was told to wait 48 hours before filing a missing person report. Samantha's family searched for her in vain, walking through the neighborhood and calling friends. But no one had seen or heard from her in the past few days. When law enforcement finally got involved, they were able to determine whom Samantha had spoken with before she vanished. It turned out that their trailer park neighbor, 45-year-old Randy Taylor, had called Samantha's number 6 times and was the last person to speak to her before she abruptly left in the middle of the night. The police questioned Taylor. He claimed that Samantha had been involved with a married man, and he had called to warn her. According to him, the man's wife had found out and was threatening to teach her a lesson. Taylor insisted he was simply trying to warn Samantha to stay away from him. In Samantha Clark's disappearance case, there wasn't enough evidence to arrest Randy Taylor. But he remained the primary suspect. Even though this had happened in 2010, detectives noticed undeniable connections between the two cases. The two counties where the girls had disappeared were only an hour apart, and the last person both of them spoke to before vanishing was Randy Taylor. Both families believed that this man was responsible for their daughters' disappearances. Unfortunately, Samantha Clark's case remains unsolved. Alexis's mother, Laura, even wanted to meet with Taylor and talk to him one-on-one. She knew that the man had children and hoped to appeal to his paternal instincts. Laura clung to the hope that Taylor had kidnapped her daughter and was keeping her somewhere. She refused to even consider the possibility that Alexis was no longer alive. The only thing that kept her going each morning was the hope of her daughter's return, or at least some information about her whereabouts. Billboards with Alexis's photos were put up along Highway 29, the road she had been traveling home on. Laura gave several interviews, making public statements and pleading for help from the community. People rallied around the Murphy family. Their home was constantly filled with friends and acquaintances who helped with household tasks so that the parents could focus on the search. Laura and Troy's co-workers donated their vacation time so the couple could have extra days off. Alexis's social media followers posted photos of themselves wearing pink t-shirts with her image, using the hashtag #PinkForAlexis. Her disappearance truly captured widespread attention. Two musicians even made a music video about missing girls, mentioning Alexis in the lyrics. Meanwhile, the Murphy family waited for Randy Taylor's trial. The man never pleaded guilty, insisting that Alexis and her friend had left his trailer unharmed, and that he had no idea what happened to her afterward. Taylor's lawyer pushed for the trial to be moved to another city, arguing that the local community had already convicted his client in the court of public opinion. He was frustrated by how the media portrayed Taylor as guilty before the trial had even begun. The town where Alexis disappeared was very small, just over 500 residents and an area of only 10 square kilometers. People were determined to see justice served against the criminal who had disturbed their town and cast a shadow over its name. However, the judge denied the defense attorney's request. Instead, he issued a gag order, preventing attorneys, police officers, and all involved parties from publicly discussing case details. Jury selection then began. 8 women and 6 men were chosen. Initially, the prosecution offered Taylor a plea deal to avoid trial. They promised to request a minimum sentence of 20 years if he pleaded guilty. But Taylor refused. Instead, he made his own counteroffer. He would serve only 10 years in exchange for revealing the location of Alexis's remains. Despite insisting throughout the investigation that he had nothing to do with Alexis's disappearance, when faced with the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars, he suddenly wanted to make a deal, but only on his terms. Of course, the prosecutor refused to negotiate. Alexis's parents, Laura and Troy, were also informed of Taylor's offer. As desperate as they were to finally learn where their daughter was, they also couldn't bear the thought of Taylor being released early, only to harm someone else in the future. On May 1st, 2014, the trial of Randy Taylor, accused of kidnapping and murdering 17-year-old Alexis Murphy, began. About 30 friends and family members were present in the courtroom. Some of them wore pink t-shirts with photos of the missing girl. Additionally, parents of other victims, unrelated to this case, were also there. They had come simply to support the Murphy family, and their support came at the right time because Laura and Troy were unaware of many details of the investigation. Detectives had kept certain aspects of the case confidential, so the trial brought a severe emotional shock for Alexis's parents. When the prosecutor began discussing the physical evidence collected during the search and mentioned the pink top with bloodstains, Alexis's mother, Laura, nearly fainted. Until the very last moment, she had held on to hope that her daughter would be found alive. In her mind, she had created different scenarios. Maybe Alexis fell for the wrong person and ran away with him. Or maybe she had lost her memory and couldn't find her way home. But the blood on her child's clothing, this was something Laura had never prepared herself for. When the prosecution mentioned the ripped-out hair extensions and false eyelashes, the last thread of hope snapped for Laura. The broken fingernail and shattered cell phone only confirmed the grim reality. Alexis was gone. At the same time, this revelation brought a small sense of closure to her parents. Laura and Troy no longer clung to a miracle. At the very least, they knew their child was no longer suffering. The physical evidence contradicted Taylor's claims that Alexis and her friend had a fun time at his trailer and then left unharmed. The prosecution called witnesses, including employees from the Liberty gas station in Lovingston, who saw Alexis and Taylor talking for a while before getting into their cars and driving north, toward Taylor's trailer. A taxi driver also came forward. He had picked up Taylor after he had left Alexis's white Nissan Maxima near the movie theater in Charlottesville. Even though surveillance footage from the area didn't clearly show Taylor, the coincidence was too strange. He was there right around the time Alexis's car was abandoned. The jury was also shown footage of Taylor's first interrogation, where he denied being at the Liberty gas station on August 3rd or seeing Alexis Murphy. And then they watched as detectives exposed his lies. Throughout the trial, Taylor looked so overwhelmed that he ultimately chose not to testify in his own defense. He was facing a minimum of 20 years in prison, but the prosecutor pushed for the maximum, life imprisonment. And most importantly, in the state of Virginia, parole was abolished in 1996. This meant that if convicted, Taylor would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The only option left for Taylor was to try to file an appeal, which he did. Taylor argued that he had not received a fair trial. He insisted that the hearing should have been moved outside Nelson County because there was too much bias against him there. Taylor also claimed that he had a weak attorney who had not even managed to find witnesses to prove his innocence. However, his appeal was denied. Taylor attempted to appeal to the Virginia Supreme Court, but it was rejected there as well. Still, there were those who truly believed him. Some people supported Taylor's family and, as a result, were angry at Alexis Murphy, as if she were to blame for Taylor ending up behind bars, as if the girl herself was at fault for being taken from this world. This strange crowd tore down flyers with photos of the missing high schooler, even though her body had still not been found. It was a peculiar, small-scale protest. The search for Alexis continued for a long time after her disappearance. One day, a volunteer team of more than 150 people, including many members of the volleyball team that Alexis had captained in her lifetime, searched a 200-acre marshy area used for hunting in western Orange County. The terrain was difficult to navigate, and the searchers had to walk the entire route on foot. They examined every depression or irregularity in the ground, hoping to bring an end to the nightmare that Alexis's family continued to live through. Though the search ended without results, it actually brought a glimmer of hope to Lori and Troy. They believed that one day they would find Alexis, and the open wound in their hearts would begin to heal. On February 17, 2021, police announced to the public that the remains of 17-year-old Alexis Murphy, who had gone missing in August 2013, had been found, approximately 5 miles from where she was last seen alive. Her body was discovered only after Randy Taylor confessed to detectives where he had left her after strangling her. The inmate never revealed details about that August evening. In fact, Alexis had been found back in December 2020, but it took the forensic examiner about 2 months to fully identify what was left of her. Her parents were informed of the discovery on February 5th. Authorities gave the Murphy family time to come to terms with their loss without unnecessary questions and public attention. The news was shared with the public 2 weeks later. The police had kept their promise to bring the high schooler home. The Murphy family, friends, loved ones, law enforcement officers, former teachers, coaches, and members of the community all came to say their goodbyes. Instead of mourning speeches at the funeral, people reminisced about who Alexis was. They cried, laughed through their tears, and for the first time in a long while, her parents felt at peace. Their little girl was finally home, and now they could take care of her. If you have finished watching, you are a real fan of true crime. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications, and put the like. See you in the next video.